Hi, and welcome to the third video in this series. This is Beginner Skills 3, Adding Students to Google Classroom. In this video, you're going to learn about how to add students by email, how to add them by course code, and how to create class groups in Gmail in your contacts. Okay, here we are. We're back in Classroom. And this is just where we left off. We're in Research Writing, Fall 2020. We're under Classwork tab. The focus of this video is how to add students to your Google Classroom. You might actually do this last. Some people would flesh out the entire course with all the coursework, or at least a good deal of it, before they ever invited students. But it is obviously a critical skill, so I'm covering it third in this series. What we want to do when we add people is one of two things. Now, traditionally, the easiest way to do that would be to go over to Stream, and if students were in your classroom, physically present in a classroom, you could just display the course code within the Google Classroom application on their iPad, or even on the web page for Google Classroom. Students would then click a plus button that says add or join a course, and they would enter this course code. And this code is associated with my course, so if they entered the correct course code and they have access because of the domains, because in this case Wilmina, if they have access and they're in the right domain, then they would just automatically come into my course as soon as they input this course code. However, and you can make it even larger. So if some students need to see it really large, you're projecting on a screen, great. However, I think as we learned in spring 2020, we don't always get them face-to-face, and we have to do something by email. Now, you could take this course code and you could individually email your students this course code and say, hey, follow these instructions. Go to Google Classroom app, put in this course code, and that can work. However, I think sometimes it's just simpler is better for the students. And so the second way to add students would be by email. And this might be necessary, like I said, if you don't see your students face to face. This is a very simple interface. You could add teachers by email address as well. But what we're going to do here today is we're going to look at this student's email. And what I want to emphasize is you can type in names individually. So you could say whatever. I'm just going to give an example. Brandon Kramer, and then I could type in Stuart. These are a couple guys I often work with. I could type in their names. I could do that individually. But the problem here is these guys are already in my address book. Google, Gmail, they know that I contact these guys. They are contacts of mine. What do we do when we have a new class filled with students that we've never met before or emailed before, and Google and Gmail doesn't know who they are? As far as I'm concerned, we don't know each other. So what we would do, so if we had all those, we would invite them here. If we had all those addresses, we would invite them here. I'm going to hit cancel. What I think the hardest part of this is, it's critical, but what the hardest part is getting student names and email addresses set up. And that's an administrative side. So what I'm going to show you how to do now is a very OJ specific thing. And I'm going to take you over to MyWill. Everybody's, I think, familiar with MyWill. And I'm logged in already. You can see my name up here. And we're going to go to Campus Magic. And it's all in Japanese. Some of you that's a struggle. Some of you it's not. I'm somewhere in the middle. You want to go up here, and I don't remember how to read this actually. But you're going to want to go to this fourth button on the top row. This one that looks like I guess it looks like a notebook. I'm going to click on that, and I want to go right here. And I believe this means something like print class rosters or something like that. So you want to go to this third tab here with the 6 Japanese characters. I'm sorry, I don't know how to read it. So we click on that. Okay, and now I can see all the courses I've got for this year according to Campus Magic, and I can see which semesters. So this is spring, fall, spring, fall, spring, fall, fall, fall. I've got a busy fall coming up. what I recommend doing is clicking the box for all the rosters you want to download. So for me, I'd want to download anything in the fall. We're heading into fall. So I want that one. I want World News A. I want Current World Events G, Research Writing A, and Advanced Seminar 3. And then from there, I have the option to, also you have the option to click everything. So this button would click everything, and this button would deselect everything. But I just want those fall classes. And you have the option to download as a PDF, download as an Excel, or download as a, I believe it's Excel with pictures. This can be useful. For this task, I would just recommend downloading the Excel sheet. And from there, I'm not actually going to show you this because I don't want to open any of these files and potentially compromise student privacy. But you would click this button and it would download an Excel file with several spreadsheets in one file. And those spreadsheets have student names, student ID numbers, and student email addresses. So you would click here and you'd have that. So once you had that, I would recommend you find a way to essentially get into your, get all the names and all of the email addresses into a very specific format. So this is not ideal. I'm going to use Google Keep over here as a sort of scratch pad. I'm going to take a note, but it's mostly just to demonstrate the format that student names and email addresses need to be in. And just hang with me in case this seems a little confusing. I promise there's a pretty good payoff for this. So if we're going to add a lot of students at once to our contacts and a Google Classroom, it's ideal to have the following format. You're going to have the student name in quotation marks, and then a space. And then we want this sideways, I don't know what the symbol name is, but we want this little sideways caret thing. I think we call it a caret. And then we want the student email where's the at wilhelmina.ac.jp, for example. And we want the other caret. And if we're going to do lots of names, we want them separated by a comma. And we would do this, and you could see how we'd have, sometimes 30, 40 student names for a class. And I've got a macro in Excel, because my Campus Magic, it downloads these as Excel. I've got a macro. Anybody who's interested, I can totally send that to you and show you how to run that macro. I've got a video about that already. But you're going to want to take these names, and I would copy these, for example, Command C. And then I would go over here to contacts, down here. You can move these around. People don't know this. You can move these around. If you're using some more than others, you can move this around. I tend to use contacts pretty often, but I think it's about right down here. Certainly I don't want it like buried down here. Actually, why is Classroom way down there? Maybe I can't move that one. But contacts, I want to open. And I want to create a contact. And ideally, if you had all the students in the right format, you'd create multiple contacts. And then you would just paste all of them in here. And right now it's just one and it's just a sample. But if you had all those names and you had them all formatted the right way, it should show up like this with this sort of, the name will be in a bubble. And you can see the quotation marks are missing, and it knows the email address. Like, that's the format Gmail wants it. And they even sort of tell you right here. You could also import it as a CSV if you had that, or a vCard. So there are other ways to do it. And what I would do is I would add a label. So I'm going to make this my Research Writing Fall 2020. I'm going to hit enter. So we've created a label. I've hit create. And if I go, yeah, here we go. On the side, we have labels. If I click on Research Writing, wow, we have just this sample one that I created right here. And if I were to go back to my Gmail and I hit compose and I type in Research Writing Fall 2020. So right now it's just one student, but imagine you have a class with 30 students. You don't have to remember all their names. If you wanted to just fire off an email and you didn't have them in Classroom, you didn't have access to Classroom for some reason at the moment, you could do that from Gmail with just remembering I have to email that class that information. Okay, so that's really a powerful thing to do. It also helps when you add students. So I believe, oh, that doesn't work. I wonder if I have to refresh. I think it works, but let's try. So we add students. Okay, well, it didn't work. But again, if you had them all in, if we go back to Keep, if we had a giant list of student names and email addresses like this, and we copied them, and we went over here, and we did Pyong like that, it automatically pops it up. So like it's a recognized student name, and this is a little bit Taihen difficult because of the way MyWill and Campus Magic works. But once you figure out how to do it quickly, and especially if you want that macro, let me know. You can invite that student, Pyong, and next what happens is it's sending an email, and it says this student has been invited, and it's grayed out. Once this student accepts, the email address literally does not exist, but once this student accepts, their name would become black, and as this roster fills out, you can check students, and you can do individualized actions. For example, emailing them. Imagine you had 25 students and you wanted to email them from Google Classroom. You could do all of them from here, or you could just do a select 2 or 3. Or let's say you get 3 weeks into the semester and actually 4 students dropped your course. You could select those 4 students and you could remove them from the course. Okay, so this went a little longer than I thought. This is a fundamental part of using Google Classroom. I think some people probably get a little bit frustrated when we have to invite students and we don't have face-to-face contact, such as we've had during this sort of lockdown and emergency remote teaching. But let me know if you need any help, and I'm happy to help. So I think that's it for this screencast. Okay, let's see if we can try this out for ourselves. If possible, I'd suggest you go and you download a class roster from a past semester, or if you're lucky and you are doing this when a new semester is beginning and you have a new class roster, download a class roster. If not, you can just play with the email, with the formatting. I'd like you to copy the names and email addresses into the following format. And if you have a whole list, great. But if you just want to do 1 or 2, go ahead. Just practice this format. Quotation marks around the student name, and then a space, and then a caret, I think is what we call that. The sideways V brackets, I don't know what you call them. Student's email address at yourschool.com. So for us, that would be the student's email handle at wilmina.ac.jp. And then at the end, with the closed caret and the comma, so that we can highlight all student names and copy them and paste them in at once. And if you've done that, then add those students to your contacts in your Gmail as a group. And if possible, add those students to the class by going to People in Google Classroom and sending them an invite. Now, if this is sort of difficult for you because you're in between semesters, I understand, but at least click around through the adding people function because it would be good to be familiar with that.